Oh boy. Okay, well, listen, rounded walls are here in The Sims 4, big update, and they are broken. Laughs nervously. My goal is to break the game. We're going to create a building that is a replacement for the bubble tea and thrift store in the new high school years pack, and we're going to use round walls in as many ways as possible. We'll be using foundations, platforms, fences, spandrels, pillars, as many things as I could. I even tried using steps on these rounded walls. That did not work. Basically, I'm just going to be talking about all the issues that I ran into through this build. And you will also notice that I started in base game when the patch came out and then eventually moved over to the appropriate lot in high school years. That's it. Let's go. We're going to get into it because damn. Okay, so first thing I realized, what I'm doing here in the beginning of the build is just trying to create a unique Art Deco shape for the outside, the exterior of the building. And the first thing I realized is that the interior walls of those round rooms are super finicky, but it's difficult just to hold down control and delete the walls. Instead, what I had to do was delete them one by one using the hammer tool. Another strange thing about the round rooms is when you place a round room down, you can shrink it by 2 tiles. You can shrink the width down 1 tile and the length down 1 tile. This, I don't know. I wish that they just placed down the smallest they could be and then you could expand them, because when I was working on this lot, which is a 15 by 20 lot, I ended up running out of room a lot in how the areas that I could place these round rooms before actually putting them in the place that they needed to be, because we'll see later how resizing rounded rooms can lead to a bunch of issues. So I wish that round rooms just placed down in the smallest size they can technically be. So straight platforms and walls cannot intersect with rounded walls at all, anywhere at any point on the curve. So you can see here, I'm kind of struggling with this. I was trying to add a deck using platforms around this building, and I just couldn't do it. It wasn't possible. I ended up having to completely restart. So the way round walls work is that if you are working with platforms or foundations and you want a round wall on top of them at some point, you have to place the round wall on top of the platform after it's already been laid out. You can't just put a round wall down and then have a platform or foundation organically kind of wrap around that round wall. Instead, you have to put the platform down and then place the round room on top of it. So that's kind of tough when you're talking about building, because, you know, to know whether or not you're going to need a platform underneath your round room or a foundation underneath your round room, you really have to kind of pre-plan your builds. So this was really tough. You can see I completely restarted here. So far we've only talked about the annoying aspects of building. All of these things, I think, technically work as designed, which is unfortunate because they probably won't be patched out. But now we're starting to see some of the things that the sim teams may want to address, which are like visual tears and glitches. So the first one that we can see here is on the deck outside of the building. You can see that from one platform to the next, there is a small kind of like visual tear, and it's creating a slope between the 2 platforms. Something very interesting about this is that that slope, the visual tear that we're looking at, actually has geometry to it. So if you place an object on that tear, it's going to slope up. It's going to crawl up that tear kind of like it's terrain. So we'll see another example of this later and what the grid ultimately looks like when you use round walls and run into this issue. But yeah, just something worth noting. One thing that you can do, though, if you're only working with platforms and not rooms, is that certain platform trims, if they're thick enough, they'll actually cover up this glitch, which is great. There's still an issue with the geometry there, but at least you can't see it. And then we can also see the glitches in the ceiling. I think that this happens on all rounded walls. I don't think it's specific to the build that I'm making. And to my knowledge, there is not a way to fix this yet. That ceiling glitch is visible outside and also in the interior if you're in first person mode. However, if you place a platform on top of that visual glitch, on top of the roof of your first or second or third floor, it will cover it up. So that's good. However, you will still see the error on the interior if you're doing like a virtual tour or if you're in first person mode. Okay, and then another thing you can see here is that when you do place a round room on top of a platform, the platform below does not retain the roundness of the wall. Instead, it creates a hole in the platform that uses diagonal walls. Foundations and platforms can't actually be rounded when a round room is on top of them in this way. So for the most part, this probably won't affect you, but in a little bit, we are going to see an issue as to why the fact that foundations and platforms can't cut out round holes is really kind of a an overarching issue that I'm not sure whether or not it will eventually be fixed, because this is an issue that is already present and was present in the game when we were using round fences. So I don't know. We'll see that when we see it. A lot of this speed build is really just me adding and repositioning and moving and kind of shifting things around to make something that finally works. What I will say is that if you add a round room and it's not in a place that you like, or it just doesn't look right to you, the best and easiest way you can resolve it is to just click undo rather than deleting the room. When you delete the room, or if you try even repositioning or rescaling the room, it creates a hole in the foundation or platform below the round room, which could lead to compromising the integrity of your overall room structure. So the easiest thing to do really when you place a room and don't like how it looks is just click the undo button and try again. And then we can also see that same visual tear from platform to platform that we were talking about earlier on the side of the building. The reason for this is because the inside of the building has a level 3 platform and the deck outside is level 2 and level 1. And so even though we have that rounded wall in between the two platforms, we still get that visual tear, that glitch between the two platforms because the functionality is a little bit broken right now. I will say that external rounded walls are mostly manageable. I feel like for the most part, they function as they're supposed to, especially if you're not using foundations or platforms. Interior rounded walls, if you try and use a rounded room on the inside of your house or your build, Wild West. All bets are off. I had issues with painting those walls, adding doors, putting objects on them, really just ran the gamut of issues. I think that I understand the reason why this is a glitch right now, and it has to do with something that I mentioned earlier in regards to the platform and foundation below the rounded room. Sometimes when you place a rounded room indoors, the foundation or platform below them will cause a secondary wall to automatically generate around your rounded room. That being said, you can just delete this secondary wall using the hammer tool, but I think that because the game is always trying to interpret whether or not you're trying to place something on the actual rounded wall or on the secondary diagonal wall, that's why you run into issues with placing objects on the exterior of your interior room. I think when it comes to internal I can't even say, how do I say this? When it comes to internal rounded rooms, the interior walls seem to function better. So let's say I were to place a completely circular room inside of a house using 4 rounded rooms kind of collected together. If I look at that circle, the inside of the circle functions a little bit better than the outside of the circle. And the outside, the exterior walls of your internal room can have that secondary wall, which causes the game to get just really confused about where it should be placing the object, what really is actually there. And again, this leads to issues with the geometry of the game, the grid, all of it. And then this is an example of when I was trying to add a rounded platform on top of another rounded platform. And you can see that the visual glitch that we get here is just too severe. It can't be covered up with a thick platform trim. I can't place any objects around this platform to kind of hide that. So ultimately, I ended up just scrapping the idea for something that was a lot simpler. And then to address the tears in the deck, between the deck and the rounded walls of the exterior of the building, what I tried to do was just add some objects that attach to the walls. For this build, I'm only using base game and high school years, so the number of objects that I had was pretty limited. And you can see here, it kind of does a good job at hiding some of it, but I do add another object a little bit later on that's a bit better, but ultimately, there just wasn't anything that was thick enough to cover all of these glitches. Maybe there are other like debug objects or something like that in other packs, but this is what I had, between these two packs. It's the best that I could do. And then here's another issue that I just could not resolve. On the roof of this building, I have a platform and then there's a secondary platform. So you can see here, there's this huge kind of like visual glitch between the two platforms that are on the roof of this build. You can do something to resolve this temporarily. If you select the platform and you remove the floor and then click undo, the visual glitch will go away. However, the next time you reload the lot, it will be there again. So it's a short-term solution that if you're like doing a build, taking pictures, or if you're just playing on the lot and you want it to look nice, you can do that in the interim, but it will come back the next time regardless. And this is also a really good example. Here you can see the grid and how absolutely fucked it is. It's just, bonkers. You can tell why the game is really struggling with rounded walls because look at what they're doing to the grid. It's wild. So we're just doing a little bit of decorating. And then here is where I added in the wall sculpture from high school years. This is a bit thicker than the debug item that I was using from base game earlier. It's a little bit better, but there are still obvious issues. And what I was running into is that this object was trying to clip to the height of the platform inside the wall. So because the platform inside the building is 3 high, this was trying to clip to that and it wouldn't let me lower it any more than I already had. So not the best solution, but it at least kind of hid some of the visual tears that we were getting. And then you can just see at one point in the kitchen here, the floor disappeared. I don't think that I did that, but this is just another example of the absolute absurdity around how broken these round walls are. More importantly, so it is very easy to correct. You can just build your floor back, luckily. But if you saw when I did that, I ended up having flooring from 3 different areas of the build: the deck, the interior of my building, and the roof of my building. So like, what in the world is the game thinking that it's pulling all of these different floorings from all areas of the build into this one room when I build the floor? I don't know. The Sims team has their work cut out for them in this one. I can't imagine what is going on behind the scenes in the game. Here's just an example of the geometry of those breaks in the floor. When I try and place this monkey mascot down, you can see that it rises up with the visual tear behind it. And then a huge issue that I ran into, it's not completely captured, I apologize, it's not completely captured in this video, but a huge issue that I ran into is placing round rooms inside of your building that don't resolve, that don't become their own room in themselves. So in the example here, I'm adding in a round room and then I'm deleting both of the straight walls because I went at the entrance of the build to have 2 round walls that kind of siphoned you off in the 2 different directions that you could move within the build. However, when I did that, when I removed the 2 straight walls and just left the curved wall in the middle of the build, I was getting this weird error that I couldn't paint any of the interior walls. It kept saying invalid round room, invalid round room. I couldn't click anything. So I was like, okay, let me go back to a functionality that was already in the game. I turned the curved wall into a curved fence. I was able to paint the interior walls, but then I wasn't able to paint the exterior walls. And then I got the exact same error where it said invalid round room, invalid round room. So ultimately, I could not resolve this, and I ended up just using half walls there and kind of compromising the design because I couldn't do it. So if you are placing round rooms inside of your build, I believe that they have to be complete intact rooms in themselves and they can't just be freestanding walls, or else it totally breaks the way the game is perceiving the room. And then the last issue I just wanted to chat about quickly is pillars. Pillars and round walls are not friends. They, in fact, are enemies. So pillars will, by default, always, regardless, no matter the situation, clip through a round wall. They will snap to a round wall, but they just don't do so accurately. So 2 issues. If you place a pillar in its traditional 90-degree angle on a round wall, it will clip through it. You can turn it to a 45-degree angle, but of course this doesn't sit flush to the round wall, so it looks very strange. The other issues with pillars is that they don't snap to the wall in the way that they're meant to. So when you put a pillar on a curved wall, it will show up on both sides of the wall, not just the one side. So traditionally, if you place a pillar on a straight wall, it'll essentially be cut in half and you'll only see the pillar on one side. Similarly, if you put it on a 90-degree corner, a little corner piece will be cut out of that and you will only see it on the interior or exterior of your build, depending on where you placed it. With round walls, all of that is out the window. If you place a pillar on any round wall, it will clip through. If you place it on the exterior, it will have exterior lighting. And if you place it on the interior, it will have interior lighting. So just an FYI, pillars are completely incompatible with round walls. I think that's the easiest way to say it. So that's it. You know, this speed build wasn't really about the decorating or anything like that. It was really just to showcase the functionality or lack thereof of rounded walls. As I was working on this, I kind of just got more and more discouraged, and I just wanted to share what my experience was and kind of explain some of the workarounds that I was able to find. Hopefully this was helpful. I do not recommend at this point doing anything unique with round walls. It seems like they are truly just intended to be like one accent wall in your build, if that. It's a mess, honestly. Like this was really, really challenging. It took a really long time to get where I got with this build, and there's still a lot of obvious glitches. That's what I got. If you're interested in downloading this build and checking out some of these issues for yourself, or just adding it to your world because you like how it looks, it is available on the gallery. My name on the gallery is the same as it is here, which is Patrick Creates. If you liked this video, please feel free to like it. If you want to see more, I'm going to be creating a few more builds for the high school years pack that hopefully will be a lot less glitchy. If you're interested in seeing those, please subscribe. I will be back soon. And yeah, otherwise, until next time, y'all.